Once upon a time in Lagos, hidden behind the noisy sprawl of the Oshodi market, there lived a man named Chief Durojaiye, known in quiet whispers as the Billionaire of Waste. To the unsuspecting eye, he was just another madman buried in a fortress of dustbins and rusted tin sheets. People walked past him, holding their noses, spitting their disgust into the roadside gutters. They didn't know that Chief Durojaiye owned oil fields in Warri, hotels in Victoria Island, and half the land under their feet. His wealth was the stuff of legend among the few who had ever seen his real face in the boardrooms of Abuja. But even they could not speak openly about him. If they did, their voices would disappear before the last syllable left their tongues. Those who knew Durojaiye knew better than to ask questions. They only whispered behind tinted windows and bulletproof glass, "He's obeying the cult." Durojaiye was initiated into the Omoi Brotherhood when he was just 25, freshly returned from the University of Manchester with a briefcase full of foreign degrees and an accent that made Lagos girls swoon. His father, Alhaji Ayatunde, had introduced him to the Brotherhood during a midnight ceremony in Ibadan. They said it was older than any government, any religion, older even than the rocks of Olumo. The Brotherhood offered him power, wealth, and eternal security, at a price. The price was obedience. Complete, unquestioning, sacred obedience. For 2 decades, he rose. Every deal turned gold. Every obstacle dissolved before him. He became a ghost king, known only through proxies and silence. When he turned 50, they summoned him. The ritual took place in a compound outside Ilorin, beneath a sky heavy with rain. The grand custodian of the Brotherhood, a blind woman called Ayo Sagbo, whispered the command into his ear with a breath colder than harmattan. "You will live among the forgotten. You will wear the robe of filth. You will sit in the belly of Lagos, in dustbins and decay. There your spirit will mature. And through obedience, your soul will be renewed." He didn't argue. The next week, Chief Durojaiye disappeared. His companies continued to operate, seamlessly, efficiently. But the man was gone. The man, they would later discover, had made his new home among broken TVs and rat-chewed mattresses in the heart of a dump yard off Ajij Motor Road. His throne was an old refrigerator door, his crown a plastic paint bucket. He didn't beg. He didn't speak. But every night, black jeeps would come to the edge of the dump. Men in suits would step out, bow toward the darkness, and leave fat brown envelopes under the tires before retreating. No one knew what happened to those envelopes. The area boys called him Baba Bin. At first they mocked him. One tried to slap him, for sport. That boy's body was found in the canal the next morning, eyes open, mouth stuffed with red feathers. Nobody ever touched Baba Bin AG. Every day, he wrote in a notebook made of torn cement bags. Nobody knew what he wrote. But flies swarmed around him like bodyguards, and wild dogs lay at his feet like worshippers. One night, a journalist from Channels TV tried to film him secretly. The footage was blank. The camera's lens cracked open like an egg. Durojaiye remained silent. Sometimes, on Thursdays, he would hum a song, soft, tuneless, like an old lullaby. Traders nearby said whenever he hummed, their sales would triple. Women looking for children sat near him, wrapped in silence, believing his presence would open their wombs. Some claimed it did. Others claimed he spoke to shadows that whispered back. And so, the legend grew. The cult watched. The cult waited. The city forgot who he was, but his enemies did not. They sent pastors to pray him out, Babalawos to call down thunder on his heap. Nothing worked. One prophet said he saw Durojaiye glowing gold in a dream. He woke up blind. Still, Durojaiye obeyed. Years passed. His beard turned white, knotted like the roots of an irako tree. His skin grew tough, leathery from sun and filth. But his eyes remained untouched, sharp like fresh razors, glowing like twin coals under moonlight. The cult called this Erimoli, the fire of obedience. One night, during the season of endless rain, something strange happened. A convoy of black Hilux trucks drove into the dump. Not the usual quiet SUVs that brought envelopes, but loud, hurried vehicles filled with young men in red wrappers, carrying calabashes that steamed with blue smoke. They walked in a line, heads bowed, until they formed a circle around Durojaiye's mound of filth. The oldest of them, a hunchback with missing fingers and a voice like crackling palm oil, stepped forward and said, "The time has come." Durojaiye didn't blink. He only nodded, once. The young men poured black powder on the ground and sang songs that made the dump tremble. Flies scattered. The rats fled. Even the breeze paused to listen. When they finished, they turned and left, leaving behind a gourd filled with what looked like river mud and blood. Durojaiye picked it up and drank it in one gulp. The next morning, the stench around him disappeared. The dump still stank, but not where he sat. There was a clean circle around him, like a halo of air. The area boys noticed first. They refused to come near, whispering, "He's not just Baba Bin anymore. He's something else." That week, 4 prominent politicians died mysteriously. All of them had dealings with Durojaiye decades ago, men who once laughed when he left his estate to live in garbage. Their bodies were found intact, but their eyes were missing. Whispers said Durojaiye was ascending. Still, he remained where he was, on his refrigerator door, wrapped in a sackcloth robe, barefoot and wordless. Some days he would stare into the sky for hours, unmoving, as if watching something no one else could see. Market women began to leave food by his mound, not out of pity, but respect. That food always vanished, though no one ever saw him eat. Then came the woman. She arrived in a modest wrapper, no jewelry, no perfume. But her skin was like fresh milk, her steps silent like silk on tile. Nobody saw where she came from, but everyone noticed when she arrived. She walked straight to Durojaiye, knelt, and whispered a single word. "Oren." He opened his eyes, slowly. Looked at her. Then, for the first time in years, he spoke. "It is time." She nodded. He rose. The people around gasped. He was taller than they remembered, his posture straighter, his face ageless. The dustbin mound seemed to melt under his feet. The dogs whimpered and lay flat. The clouds above thickened, and thunder rolled low like a warning. He walked through the dump without touching a single piece of trash. It parted for him, like the Red Sea. She followed behind him, barefoot, eyes cast down. That night, no one slept in the area. Dreams came like waterfalls, strange and vivid. Some saw a golden throne rising from a pit. Some saw a goat with 7 eyes speaking in tongues. Others saw nothing at all, and woke up screaming. By morning, Durojaiye was gone. But the place he sat glowed faintly, like the embers of an old sacrifice. Children who played near it stopped falling sick. A tree began to grow where there had never been one. Some said they saw Durojaiye in their dreams, dressed in clean white, standing by a river with no beginning. The cult never spoke publicly, but its members, senators, kings, generals, started resigning quietly. Some vanished. Some grew beards and moved into slums. One was seen sweeping a gutter in Aba, laughing to himself. The Brotherhood had completed a cycle. And Durojaiye Ayatunde, the billionaire of waste, had become something else. Something sacred. Something eternal. Still, in the deepest part of Oshodi, behind the smoke of burning tires and the curses of impatient drivers, some say he returns once a year. Not in flesh. Not in voice. But in presence. And when he does, the dump goes silent. Even the flies know, obedience has a throne. They say it happens on a night when the moon hides, no stars, no breeze, just a thick silence that grips the air like wet cloth. The scavengers know not to sleep in the dump on that night. The old madwoman who sells roasted maize by the roadside disappears before dusk. The mosque nearby locks its doors. Even the cockroaches crawl away. It begins with a smell, not foul, but ancient. Like rain on cracked bones. Like earth soaked in secrets. Then comes the whispering. Not loud. Not human. It slithers through the garbage like smoke through a sieve. It doesn't speak Yoruba. It doesn't speak English. It speaks the tongue of things buried. They say a shadow rises then, tall and cloaked in sackcloth, moving with the stillness of death. No feet. No eyes. Just presence. A weight that bends the air. A chill that freezes rats in mid-scurry. That is when people know Durojaiye has returned. But he's not Baba Bin anymore. No, that name belongs to the men who once sat on filth and waited for fire. The one who returns now is called Olori Eru, the King of Dread. And he doesn't come for greetings. He comes to inspect. There's a belief among the secret cults of Lagos that every city must have a spirit keeper, someone who watches over its rot, not with judgment, but with understanding. Someone who absorbs the filth of a nation, carries it on their back like a cursed bride, and turns it into silence. Durojaiye was chosen not because of his wealth, but because he never flinched. Now, they say he watches the decay of men's souls from below. Every time a politician steals from the poor, his mound trembles. Every time a girl is trafficked, his rats weep. Every time a child dies in a hospital without electricity, he writes another word into the book of endings. One young man, a Danfo conductor named Ibuka, claimed to have seen him. He was walking through the dump after a night of smoking loud with his friends. He saw something glowing near the corner where old fridges go to die. Thinking it was maybe some dropped jewelry or scrap metal he could sell, he moved closer. But it wasn't gold. It was an eye. Just one eye. Floating in the air. Watching him. Ibuka dropped dead before he could scream. When they found his body, it was untouched, no wounds, no signs of struggle. But on his chest, written in fly blood, was a single word, Soaro. Speak. The elders understood. It was a warning. The silence of Durojaiye was never weakness. It was waiting. And now, the spirit had begun to speak, not with voice, but with signs. With omens. With judgment. In Abuja, a senator woke up to find his swimming pool filled with dustbin water. No source. No leak. Just filth. His security footage showed nothing. But in the footage, at exactly 3 a.m., every light in the compound went black for 33 seconds. And when they came back on, his wall had a handprint, massive, dripping with oil. He resigned the next day and moved to a prayer camp in Benin. More signs followed. At a luxury hotel in Lekki, the presidential suite filled with the smell of burning plastic and spoiled umla. No source. At a naming ceremony in Ikorodu, the newborn opened his mouth and said, in a man's voice, "He is watching." Then he fell silent for 7 days. The cult gathered again. This time, not in joy. They met beneath the third mainland bridge, wearing cloaks made from the feathers of vulture chicks and speaking in a language that sounds like teeth grinding bone. They lit candles shaped like human ears. They poured libations from bottles wrapped in newspaper. And they asked, "Is he angry?" The answer came not in words, but in silence so loud their ears bled. The woman who had once led him away from the dump returned among them. She had not aged. Her eyes were now mirrors. She lifted her hand and said only this. He obeyed. You delayed. Then she vanished. Now, Lagos waits. Not just for fuel. Not just for power. But for the hand behind the veil to move again. For the ghost of the men who sat in trash to raise his voice. And they know, when Durojaiye speaks, Nigeria will shiver. Because the dustbin where he sat was never just filth. It was a throne of judgment. A warning. And it is not finished. Now the city listens differently. Every creak in the gutter, every cough in the market, every strange silence during a blackout, people pause, wondering if it's him. Olori Eru. The one who became dust so he could watch from the inside. The one who gave up gold for garbage, not because he was mad, but because obedience demanded it. The cult is restless now. Their ranks are thinning. Some have begun to confess crimes they never got caught for. One former oil magnate walked into a church barefoot, speaking in riddles, pouring kerosene on himself and screaming, "He's awake." The man in the waist is writing again. They locked him in Yaba Psychiatric Hospital. 3 days later, every light in the hospital went out. Rats poured through the walls like water. They found him dead in his cell, smiling. On the wall beside him, drawn in feces, was a crude drawing of a man sitting on a broken refrigerator door, with a single glowing eye in the center of his chest. A new preacher has risen in Mushin. Not from any church, not from the mosque. He sets up a stool near broken transformers and preaches into the air. They think judgment will come in thunder, he says, but judgment is quiet. Judgment is patient. Judgment smells like death and banana peels. They call him Alpha Bins, and people now leave offerings near his feet, groundnuts, wrappers of gala, old mobile phones with cracked screens. He doesn't touch them. He just sings in a low voice, Durojaiye is watching. Durojaiye is weighing. Durojaiye is remembering. There are rumors now of a new book. Not a holy one. Not one written by men. They say the book is made of shadows, with pages woven from the regrets of the powerful. That it sits somewhere beneath Lagos, buried under the trash of years, and every time someone lies to the people, one more page fills with their name. It is said that when the book is full, Durojaiye will rise, not as men, not even as spirit, but as justice itself. And then, nothing will hide. In Abuja, a driver saw him. It was midnight. He had just dropped off a senator's mistress at a hidden estate. As he turned the car to leave, his headlights caught him standing by the roadside, covered in black nylon bags, eyes glowing faintly like hot charcoal. He didn't move. He didn't blink. But in the rearview mirror, the driver swears the man whispered his name. The driver abandoned the car. He now sells roasted plantain under the pedestrian bridge in Ojuelegba and never drives after 7 p.m. Those close to power are trembling. There is a list, they say. A long list. A list being written not with ink but with rot. And the man who writes it knows all their secrets. Every deal. Every betrayal. Every time they laughed while children drank gutter water. And while they feast in glass towers, they know somewhere in the filth, he is sitting again. Not to beg. Not to suffer. But to wait. Because in Lagos, power changes clothes. And this time, power wears rags. Now the city breathes fear. Not loud, not open, but quietly, like a whisper behind clenched teeth. The kind of fear that grips a man's chest when he wakes at 3 a.m. and feels something watching, but sees nothing. The kind of fear that sits in the back of ministers' throats during interviews when they're asked about missing funds and they feel a sudden, sour taste, like dust. It spreads through banks, through estates, through government houses. Staff begin to quit without notice. Security guards refuse to work the night shift. Even the street prophets go quiet, their mouths dry when asked about the men in the waist. They know. The cult makes one last move. In an underground hall beneath the National Theatre, built long ago for rituals no one ever documented, they gather. Not all of them. Some have fled to Europe, pretending to need medical leave. Some have disappeared into the mangroves of Bayelsa, seeking protection from old gods who now refuse to answer. But the few who remain, the brave or the foolish, try one last summoning. They bring a child born under eclipse. They bring soil from the grave of the first thief in Nigeria. They burn memories, old photos, signed contracts, passports. And they call his name. 3 times. Durojaiye. 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 At first, nothing. Then a wind. Not from outside, but from beneath the floor, cold and foul, like the breath of something ancient and buried. Then the lights go out. A hand, not attached to any body, rises from the center of their circle, holding a blackened crown made of melted plastic and bottle caps. The hand turns slowly, showing the crown to each of them. Then a voice, deep and dry like cracked earth. You chose gold over truth. Now the gold will bury you. The hand drops the crown. It hits the floor like iron. The floor splits open. The cultists scream, but it's too late. By morning, no trace of them remains. Just the smell of melted dreams. And above ground, the people begin to see changes. Children in Ajigunal start dreaming the same dream, a man with glowing eyes planting trees made of bones. A governor's mansion in Delta floods with black water, even during dry season. And in the heart of Lagos, where the biggest dump once stood, a tree begins to grow. Not a normal tree. It grows overnight. Its bark is black, its leaves sharp and silver like razor blades. No bird dares land on it. No man dares cut it. At the base of the tree, someone builds a small shrine, not from marble or gold, but from the same tin sheets and dustbins where it all began. They place his name there. Durojaiye Ayatund. The one who obeyed. The one who waited. The one who watched. No one dares pray aloud at the shrine. But people pass by and bow their heads. Some leave breadcrumbs. Some pour libation. Some whisper apologies for things they did or didn't do. And deep beneath Lagos, beyond sound, beyond rot, beyond even time, something rests. Not asleep. Not dead. Just watching. And in that silence, a truth becomes clear to all who hear the story. The throne of judgment does not sit in a palace. It sits in the dustbin. And it remembers everything. We will be stopping here. Kindly like, subscribe and comment your opinion. More videos will be uploaded frequently. Kindly stay active in this channel community to stay active when new videos will be uploaded. God bless you.